Good morning and welcome, everyone. It is my great joy and privilege to start us off this morning with some special guests, some folks that many of you will recognize, some music that has carried us forward to justice. Emma's Revolution is here with us this morning. They've been singing songs about participation in civic life, about our work for justice for many years, and it's a delight to have them with us. So let us start off with some music.
Good morning, so glad to be with you. Sing with us.
We are living beneath the great big dipper. We are washed by the very same rain. We are swimming in the stream together, some in power, some in pain. We can worship this ground we walk on, cherishing the beings that we live beside. Loving spirits will live forever. We're all swimming to the other side. I am alone, I am searching, hungering for answers in my time. I am balanced at the brink of wisdom. I'm impatient to receive a sign. I move forward with my senses open. Imperfection, it be my crime. In humility, I will listen. We're all swimming to the other side. We are living beneath the great big dipper. We are washed by the very same rain. We are swimming in the stream together, some in power, some in pain. We can worship this ground we walk on, cherishing the beings that we live beside. Loving spirits will live forever. We're all swimming to the other side. On this journey through thoughts and feelings, finding intuition, my head, my heart, I am gathering the tools together. I'm preparing to do my part. All of those who have come before me, band together and be my guide. Loving lessons that I will follow. We're all swimming to the other side. We are living beneath the great big dipper. We are washed by the very same rain. We are swimming in the stream together, some in power, some in pain. We can worship this ground we walk on, cherishing the beings that we live beside. Loving spirits will live forever. We're all swimming to the other side. When we get there, we'll discover all of the gifts we've been given to share have been with us since life's beginning, and we never noticed they were there. We can balance at the brink of wisdom, never recognizing that we've arrived. Loving spirits will live together. We're all swimming to the other side. We are living beneath the great big dipper. We are washed by the very same rain. We are swimming in the stream together, some in power and some in pain. We can worship this ground we walk on, cherishing the beings that we live beside. Loving spirits will live forever. We're all swimming to the other side. Loving spirits will live forever. We're all swimming to the other side.
Thank you for starting us off. Good morning and welcome to our Central Coast Unitarian Universalist Collaborative Sunday service. I'm the Reverend Julia Hamilton and I'm the lead minister at the Unitarian Society of Santa Barbara. And I'm joined this morning by Reverend Tamara Casanova Suzuki, minister at Live Oak Congregation in Goleta, and Reverend Dana Warsnop, who's the minister at the Unitarian Universalist Congregation in Ventura. And Reverend Rod Richards from San Luis Obispo is taking a well-deserved Sunday off. And of course, we will have wonderful music from Emma's Revolution live with us all morning. This is the second of our 4 services on the theme of the spirit of democracy. And we are so glad that you have joined us today. Welcome to you from San Luis Obispo. Welcome to you from Live Oak and Goleta. Welcome to Ventura Unitarian Universalists and Santa Barbara Unitarian Universalists, and especially to friends and family and visitors who are joining with us for the first time. We would love to have you stick around after the service, where we're going to break out into our 4 different social hours. So find your local congregation and gather together for some conversation and camaraderie after the service. We would love to get to know you. If you have any questions or technical issues during the service, you can reach out to one of us through the chat and we can help. And welcome to everyone who is joining us on the live stream as well, who is with us on YouTube this morning. Hello to you, and we are so glad that you are here. There are so many things going on in the world right now and in our lives. I want to congratulate you for taking this time to come together to nourish your spirit, open your heart, and renew your courage. Dear ones, these are challenging and heartbreaking times, but we are stronger and more resilient when we know that we are not alone. So take a moment now to take a breath, to settle yourself wherever you are. Wherever you are is a sanctuary this morning as we are gathered together. Let the sound of our bell connect us. If you have a chalice or a candle nearby and you would like to light it with us, go ahead and get ready to do that now. And I have a very special guest to help us light our chalice this morning.
Hello, my name is Jasmine Wada, and I will be voting for the first time in selection. I'm lighting our chalice this morning in honor of the tiny spark that each of us create when we cast our votes and add our voices to the larger light of liberty. I light this chalice in honor of first-time voters like myself, all those who are old enough to vote, all those who have just become citizens, and all of those who have never voted before but have decided for the first time to participate. I light this chalice in honor of those who have fought for the right to vote, our ancestors and elders who refuse to be overlooked and demand representation. I light this chalice for all those who have faithfully voted in many elections, each time imagining the world as it might become. And I light this chalice for all those who are not able to vote, that we may remember them when we make the choices that will impact us all. May our democracy be strengthened and our choices light the way towards a more beloved world. Thank you.
Hello, I am the Reverend Dana Warsnop, happily and proudly serving the Unitarian Universalist Church of Ventura, and it is so good for us all being here together. We begin this morning with the words of Albert Rios, "A House Called Tomorrow." You are not 15 or 12 or 17. You are 100 wild centuries and 15, bringing with you in every breath and in every step everyone who has come before you and all the yous you have ever been. The mothers of your mother, the fathers of your father. If someone in your family tree was trouble, 100 were not. The bad do not win, not finally, no matter how loud they are. We simply would not be here if that were so. You are made fundamentally from the good. With this knowledge, you never march alone. You are the breaking news of the century. You are the good who has come forward through it all, even if so many days feel otherwise. But think, when you, as a child, learn to speak, it's not that you didn't know words. It's that from the centuries, you knew so many. And it's hard to choose the words that will be your own. From those centuries, we human beings bring with us. We human beings bring with us the simple solutions and songs, the river bridges and star charts and song harmonies, all in service to a simple idea that we can make a house called tomorrow, that we bring finally into the new day. What we bring is ourselves every day. And that's all we need to start. That's everything we require to keep going. Look back only as long as you must. Then go forward into the history you will make. Be good, then better. Write books, cure disease, make us proud. Make yourself proud. And those who came before you, when you hear thunder, hear it as their applause. Come, let us worship together.
At the Unitarian Society of Santa Barbara, we began a practice on the first Sunday of January of this year, and we called it the Good Things Jar. We committed to every single Sunday lifting up the good things that brought us joy that we find in the world all around us to help keep us in balance for what we knew was going to be a difficult year. And we had no idea at the time how important this practice would become or how difficult this year would get. And so we have stayed committed to this challenging practice of lifting up good things each and every Sunday. And so all of you are invited in this moment to think of something that brought you joy this week, some place where you learned and some place where you laughed. And perhaps when we gather together in our social time after the service, share that joy with someone when you get together to talk, because we need to share our joys as well as our griefs during this time. And I'm going to lift up a communal joy for all of us, as I do each and every Sunday. It is fitting that as we recognize Indigenous Peoples Day tomorrow, we can celebrate a change here in Santa Barbara that was long overdue. The renaming of the street that was formerly known as Indio Muerto, a name that has done violence to countless generations of Indigenous members of our community. The street's name has now been changed to Hutash, the Chumash name for Earth Mother, a beautiful switch. This is just one small step in the long process of working to heal the wounds of genocide. We know that words matter, and it is a joy to be able to celebrate a beautiful new name for this street in our community. As we continue the theme of recognizing Indigenous Peoples Day tomorrow, we cannot talk about democracy in America without recognizing that the world's oldest surviving participatory democracy started right here, long before the colonists ever arrived from Europe. The Hadanoshani Great Law of Peace, also called the Iroquois Confederacy, was established sometime around 1100. A governing council was created with a set number of seats for representatives from each nation to be selected by the clan matriarchs, the clan mothers of the tribes. The Great Law of Peace was a detailed system that determined which powers were granted to the Great Council and what powers were retained by the individual tribal nations. Sound familiar? Issues of war and trade and land were determined how to be resolved, and often important issues were sent back to the individual nations for a referendum, and the representatives would return to vote in council. It was one of the first examples of government by the consent of the people that the colonists had ever seen. Benjamin Franklin was an ambassador to the Hadanoshani, and after observing this political system, he invited them to share it, and he brought back many of these ideas to the framers of the Constitution. The symbol of the Great Law of Peace was 5 arrows bound together to make them stronger, representing the way that the tribes were stronger together. And on the seal of the United States of America, the eagle clutches 13 arrows, using that same imagery of strength in unity, borrowed from the Hadanoshani. The colonists didn't, however, adopt the equal participation of women into systems of government, unlike the matriarchal Indigenous nations. And rereading this history, it became clear to me once again how much of what I was originally taught was incomplete or just plain wrong. Tomorrow, as we pause to recognize the ongoing struggle of Indigenous communities for recognition and respect, I encourage you to take a little time to fill in some of those gaps maybe in your own education, to learn a little bit more about the Hadanoshani and their influence on our system of government, as well as to pause and give thanks for the Chumash, the Gabrielino, and the Salinan tribes that have been caretakers of this land here on the Central Coast for thousands of years. As we reflect on Indigenous contributions to American democracy, I would like to share with you this poem by Indigenous author Allison Adele Hedge-Koch, inspired by the poems of Walt Whitman and Langston Hughes. And it's titled, "America, I Sing Back." And I wanted to invite you to listen to her read this poem.
America, I sing back, sing back. It's an elegy. Okay, I'm gonna read some poetry tonight, even though I'm here mentoring in nonfiction. I feel like poetry.
I'm going to stop right there. Erin, go ahead and restart the video. It's time to start at just the right spot.
An elegy.
So we may have to stop screen share for just a moment and restart this. It's part of a longer video, and we've got the clip set for just the time for this poem. So let's try it one more time. There we go.
America, I sing back what sung you in. I sing back the moment that you cherish breath. I sing you home into yourself and back to reason. Before America began to sing, I sung her to sleep. I held her cradle board, wept her into day. My song gave her creation, prepared her delivery. It held her severed cord, beautifully beaded. My song helped her to stand, held her hand for the first steps. It nourished her very being and fed her, placed her 3 sisters strong. My song comforted her as she battled my reason and broke my long-held footing sure, as any child might do. As she pushed herself away, forced me to remove myself. As I cried this country, my song grew roses in each tear's fall. My blood veined the rivers, painted pipestone quarries, circled canyons, while she made herself, made him fine. But here I am. Here I am, here I remain, high on each and every peak, carefully rumbling her great underbelly, prepared to pour forth singing and sing again I will, as I have always done, never silenced unless in the company of strangers, with some stoic face, polite repose, polite, while dancing deep inside, polite, mother of her world and sister of myself. When my song sings loud again, and when I call her back into the cradle, call her to peer into the waters to behold herself in light and dark, day and night, call her to sing along, call her to mature and envision, then she will quake herself over, my song will make it so, and when she grows far past her self-considered purpose, I will sing her back I will, oh I will, and I do. America, I sing you back, sing back what sung you in. Thank
Well, we want to bring you a song, and we wanted to just mention that we are singing here from the Patwin land up here in Woodland, California, just north of you by a ways. And we're so honored to be with you here this morning for this powerful service.
My ancestors, the Cherokee Nation, came together for the first time, the Eastern and Western bands, the part of the nation that that was removed from their southeastern homeland by Andrew Jackson. They came together for the first time in 1984, surprisingly. And in that time, 1,000 members of my ancestors' nation met in one space, and in 3 days, with 1,000 people, came to consensus around the issues that that governed both parts of the nation. That was the year that I wrote essentially my first song and decided to do this work. You'll hear that song later. It's the song Keep On Moving Forward. This song that we're going to sing was written as the request was put out for people to write a new national anthem. And this song was written by a young friend of ours in Brooklyn named Jean Rowe. And the song is Arise, Arise.
Atlantic and Pacific flow, the Great Lakes and the Gulf of Mexico, the land between sustains us all, to cherish it our tireless goal. Arise, arise, I see the future in your eyes. To one more perfect union we aspire, and lift our voices from the fire. We reach these shores from many lands. We came with hungry hearts and hands. Some came by force, some by will, at the auction block or the darkened mill. Arise, arise, I see the future in your eyes. To one more perfect union we aspire, and lift our voices from the fire. We died in your fields, in your factories, strange fruit hanging from the poplar trees, an old coat hanger in a room somewhere, a trail of tears and electric chair. Arise, arise, I see the future
one more perfect union we aspire, and lift our voices from the fire. Our great responsibility to be guardians of our liberty, till tyrants bow to the people's dream, and justice flows like a mighty stream. Arise, arise, I see the future in your eyes. To one more perfect union we aspire, and lift our voices from the fire. Arise, arise, I see the future in your eyes. To one more perfect union we aspire, and lift our voices from the fire.
What a beautiful anthem. Thank you. I'm the Reverend Tamara Casanova Suzuki, and it is my joy to serve Live Oak Unitarian Universalist Congregation. Last week in my homily, I encouraged each of us to look for ways to hold on to hope and gratitude and joy each day as we ground ourselves in ongoing spiritual practices. For many of us, meditation in its various forms is an integral part of our spiritual toolkit, so necessary in this time. This morning, as we enter into a time of silent meditation, we're aware that even though we're not physically together, we are bound in the interdependent web of existence, each of us held, each of us linked one to another, to all beings and to our Mother Earth. As you sit for a time in silence, perhaps think of where you feel the most need to send healing energy at this time. Perhaps yourself, your loved ones, our nation, our world. I invite us all at this time to take a deep cleansing breath and release, and let us join together in a time of silence.
If I love you all my days, would it be so strange if it stood in sharp contrast to all the bad news we pause for a moment in the eye of the storm. There is calm. Let me be your shelter. You can come and rest. Let me be your shelter. You can come and rest in me. In the time that we have now, we are learning how to seek sanctuary wherever we are in this love. Let me be your shelter. You can come and rest. Let me be your shelter. You can come and rest in me.
Thank you. It's nice to catch those moments of peace wherever we can. In preparation for this service, my colleagues and I spent some time reflecting on some of our own earliest experiences with voting, and we'd like to share a few of those stories.
My memory of voting involves the great sense of pride that I felt when I voted for the first time. I don't remember the specifics of the election itself, but I remember that I was a student at UC Santa Barbara at the time, and I drove my roommates crazy with my excitement that just mounted as each day got closer to the election day. And when election day finally arrived, I was first in line as soon as the polls opened, which is actually really crazy for a college student. For me, the highlight of the day was, of all things, that little "I voted" sticker, which I wore so proudly for the rest of the day. I think I may have actually walked around campus a lot more than I needed to that day just to show that little sticker off. I'm a little embarrassed to say that I left that sticker on my sweatshirt for many, many days. And when it finally looked very tattered, I finally peeled it off and I saved it for years in my memorabilia stash. I still feel a sense of pride and the great privilege of living in a democracy every time I vote.
One of my first memories of voting was going with my mother to the voting booth at the polling place, which was the high school, just about a half a block from our house. And in Louisiana, where I grew up, we had those big lever machines with a curtain for privacy, like in a dressing room that you'd pull around, and you'd flip little levers for each choice on the ballot. And then you'd pull this big lever on the side to cast your vote. And my mom would let me do that part, which was very exciting. It was a very mechanical and impressive process. And so when I was older and I moved to California, I have to admit, I was a little disappointed when I walked into my first polling place here and I just found these little cardboard privacy screens and a paper ballot. It felt somehow less solid than those big lever machines. And don't even get me started on how I feel about the prospect of touchscreens. Now it's even easier, of course. I just sit at my kitchen table and fill out my ballot and drop it in a collection box. But on some level, every time I vote, I still miss that big, solid feeling of casting a lever. It felt important. It still does.
The first time I ever voted was in my hometown of Plymouth, Michigan, just days after I graduated from high school. Though the main issue was small and local, a vote for the school board and a property tax increase for those schools, that election is seared into my memory. I vividly remember the force of my mother's voice telling me never to take voting for granted and never to think that that individual votes don't matter, that we should always vote in every election. You see, the proposal to raise funds for schools lost by a single vote. When Julia asked me to share an early memory of voting, this is the story that instantly leapt to mind. Yet I honestly wasn't sure how the vote went or exactly how very close it was. What I remember is sitting in the passenger seat of the car and hearing the depth and intensity of my mother's convictions. Yet, thanks to the wonders of the internet, I found archives of the local newspaper's actual front page for June 17th, 1976. A paper with the delightful name, The Observer and Eccentric. I confirmed that this was almost certainly the first time I ever voted, and indeed, that school tax lost 3,434 votes to 3,433, which was less than a quarter of the registered voters. It was both the closeness of the vote and the low participation that powered my mother's outrage. In my family, supporting public education and exercising our franchise are still sacred civic duties. It was a small election for a local issue. Yet ever since, I have never doubted the power of a single vote.
As we head into the last few weeks of this election season, I invite you to find a few moments to reflect on your own early experiences with voting. What did you learn from your parents? And what do you hope to pass on to the next generation? Jane Addams, the social pioneer, activist, and the first American woman to receive the Nobel Peace Prize, wrote Democracy and Social Ethics in 1902, 18 years before she would be able to legally cast her first vote in a national election. She described in the gendered language of her time, a conception of democracy not merely as a sentiment which desires the well-being of all men, nor yet as a creed which believes in the essential dignity and equality of all men, but as that which affords a rule of living as well as a test of faith. Democracy affords a rule of living as well as a test of faith. A rule of living points to the system, the way the democratic process functions, a series of actions by which decisions are made, by which power is distributed, by which the laws that govern us all are created. But democracy, Adam says, is not just the system, not just the rule of living. It is also a test of faith. Because what is democracy if it is not the willingness to put your faith in humanity, to believe that when the people have their say, the outcome will lean toward the common good rather than lead us astray. Our democratic system may not be perfect, and we may not be happy with the results each and every time, but overall, to practice democracy, to sustain democracy, requires a belief in humanity. It is, Adam's thought, very much like a religion. Like a religion, it binds us together as a people, offering up both a system of rules for daily life, as well as holding up a faith that extends beyond the horizon of the moment and catches a glimpse of something grander. Like a religion, it describes both what is and what could be, and it lives in that gap, that creative tension between who we are and who we could become. As the poet Langston Hughes wrote in 1936, "Let America be America again, the land that never has been yet and yet must be." The Indigenous poet Addison Adele Hedge Cook, in conversation with the poetry of Hughes and that other quintessentially American poet Walt Whitman, she added her own hopes for what we might become when America finally grows up and matures. She shares her hopes for reconciliation, like that between a mother and a child. Both Hughes and Hedge Cook recognize the power in the democratic vision, the heartbreaking distance between that vision and reality. And yet also they hold out hope that when the people, all of the people, are included and valued and given the chance to participate, the vision of democracy will be redeemed. Dear ones, we are living in a time when both the practice and the faith of democracy are being tested. We are living in a time when we are no longer in agreement, it seems, about the democratic ideals that are supposed to bind us together despite our differences. We are living at a turning point in this grand democratic experiment. There has always been a tension in our nation between the ideals of equality and the actual practice of who gets a say in government. The people who wrote the Constitution may have articulated a noble vision, but in reality, it was only the white men of means who controlled the outcome. Despite their soaring rhetoric, it turns out that their faith in humanity was pretty narrow. It only extended to other men like themselves. And it is tempting to excuse them as being the products of their time, bound by an inability to recognize the full humanity of women, or of anyone not of European ancestry. However, knowing that they were inspired in so many ways by the Hadanoshani, and yet they rejected that sharing of power among genders that was practiced by the Hadanoshani, it cannot be argued that the original writers of the Constitution had no other models. They chose to limit the right to vote because it was important to them to preserve power among the people that they trusted, people like themselves. They may not have wanted a king or a monarchy, but they held fast to the belief that only white men of high social standing were fit to govern. A government of the people, by the people, and for the people was still a long ways away. And yet ultimately, that narrow vision of whose voice counted lost out. And the right to vote was expanded over time as more and more people demanded entry into the processes of power. The process of democracy can be described as this move from coercion to consent. Coercive political power, where the state derives its authority from its ability to punish or reward, moves towards authority granted by the consent of the governed. The right to vote was expanded not because the people in power extended a benevolent hand to those in the margins, but rather because the people on the margins refused to grant their consent to be governed unless they were included in the system. What does it look like to refuse to be governed by a system that doesn't include you? It looks like sit-ins. It looks like boycotts. It looks like chaining yourselves to the doors of the State House. It looks like marches. It looks like civil disobedience. It looks like riots, the language of the unheard, as Martin Luther King Jr. pointed out. When denied the right to vote, people on the margins withdrew their consent to be governed until they achieved that right, freely and without intimidation. At which point they reinvested in the process by showing up at the polls and organizing to achieve representation. The struggle for the right to vote freely and without intimidation is still ongoing. To cast your vote in a free and fair election is to consent to be governed by the outcome of that process. Voting is, of course, not the only way to exercise power or engage with the government, but it is a critical one. To vote is to put your faith not just in your own power, in your own voice, but in the collective power of all of the people who fill out that ballot. So I ask you, how far are you willing to put your faith in humanity? Do you believe that only some people are smart enough, good enough, or educated enough to know what is best for our society? Or are you willing to believe that the more people we have in the mix, the more diversity of life experiences we have at the polls, the better the collective outcome will be? It is a leap of faith. And it is clear that not everyone supports the full enfranchisement of people here in the United States even today. Just like 250 years ago, there are those who think that only the right sort of people should be encouraged to vote. I could read you any number of headlines that talk about all the ways people are being disenfranchised in this election. Over the past few years, we have seen a weakening of the Voting Rights Act, which provided oversight in states that have a history of discrimination. Protections against voter intimidation were rolled back as recently as 2018. Voter ID laws have been put in place. The purging of voter rolls has happened over and over again. Polling places have been closed. Step by step, the hard-won ability to easily and confidently cast your vote is being systematically eroded by people who want to limit rather than expand participation. And if democracy requires both the practice of enfranchisement, the granting of the right to vote, as well as faith in the potential of humanity once that right is extended, if democracy requires both that faith and that action, then we are at a turning point. Amy Kittelstrom is an author and historian who recently wrote a book titled The Religion of Democracy. And she makes the argument that pluralism is a pillar of faith in the religion of democracy. It is not an easy faith, she warns. Pluralism takes a step past multiculturalism, which affirms the vitality and preciousness of every human culture. Pluralism forays beyond countable cultures into infinity, she says, into the unknowable. Pluralism, Kittelstrom argues, is what allows democracy to be forever unfinished, to grow and change with the times, and to stretch always toward that horizon. And at the same time, she argues that democracy can only survive when each and every person within that system has the opportunity to make a contribution. Unitarian Universalism is a religion that helps us practice this pluralism, this key cornerstone of our democratic life. We practice pluralism each and every Sunday. We stretch ourselves to live in sacred relationship with people who may hold very different views from our own. We actively seek to create a unified community that values and uplifts the diversity within it. Here today, this whole month, we are practicing it even more so by gathering our 4 congregations together, seeing how we do Sunday differently and the same, holding space for unity even amidst our differences. We do this because we believe that each and every person has worth, and each and every person's voice matters, and that our lives are beautifully bound up together, and that we can put faith in that the experiences of any one of us enrich the whole of us. I want to turn now to a little bit of pragmatism. If we are at this decision point in our history, what do we do? Many of you are working hard to get out the vote, to make sure that every vote is counted, is what we must do. Every vote is a voice, and every vote matters. It's not just a matter of practicality, it's a matter of principle. It's a matter of faith. I've read a lot, and I'm sure many of you have too, about ways that we can make a difference in the coming weeks. And as I've mentioned, many of you are working on getting out that broad representation that we aspire to, but we can't just stop there. We can help normalize the idea that we may not know the results on election night, right? We can normalize the idea that sometimes this process takes time, and we can advocate for letting the process unfold. We can focus on this ideal of preserving democracy, not any one individual candidate, not one person or one party, this ideal of upholding a peaceful and democratic election where we can vote freely without intimidation or undue burden. We can advocate for a complete count. We can resist attempts to rush through, shut down, or impose arbitrary deadlines. This is part of the process of ensuring that every voice is heard. And you can center yourself in love and compassion and cultivate practices that calm your nervous system and sustain your body and spirit so that you don't freeze up in a moment of crisis. Ground your motivations from love, not fear, and your stress levels will be lower. I started with Jane Addams, so I'll return to her for some closing thoughts. This is the penalty of democracy, that we are bound to move forward or retrograde together. None of us can stand aside. Our feet are mired in the same soil, and our lungs breathe the same air. Whether we like it or not, we are bound together in this world, all of us. And democracy is not a given. It must be cultivated and sustained. So have faith, my dear ones, that when as many people as possible are brought to the table together, we will emerge with what we need to move forward. May it be so. Blessed be, and amen.
We wrote this song in the wake of the killing of George Floyd to cheer on those voices that would fill in that gap between the system that we have and the one that meets our needs, our aspirations, and our dreams. Please sing with us from where you are. Our people gonna rise. Our people gonna rise. Listen to our cries through the pain and lies. Our people gonna rise. Our people gonna sing.
Our people gonna sing.
Our people gonna sing. In spite of everything, hear our freedom ring. Our people gonna sing. Our people gonna fight.
Our people gonna fight.
Our people gonna fight for what we know is right. We're marching through the night. Our people gonna fight. Our people gonna breathe.
Our people gonna breathe.
Our people gonna breathe. Whatever you believe, we have the right to breathe. Our people gonna breathe. Our people gonna pray.
Our people gonna pray.
Our people gonna pray. Take our rights away. See you on election day. Our people gonna pray. Our people gonna rise.
Our people gonna rise.
Our people gonna rise. Listen rise. Our people gonna rise.
Our people gonna rise.
Our people gonna rise.
Our people gonna rise.
Our people gonna rise.
Okay, we'll rise. Absolutely. Thank you. My goodness. Our congregations are built on generosity. Without your generosity in its many forms, your congregation and even this gathering of, it looks like well over 500 UUs would not be happening, because you have created all of this with a simple, open-hearted generosity. We give not that we might receive, though I hope you receive goodness, depth, and meaning. We give that we might create a new thing, a good thing to make ourselves and those who came before us proud. A community that brings more love and justice into the world. The larger community along this part of the glorious California coast is a kinder and more compassionate place because our congregations are here. Our work of love and justice is far from over. So I invite you to continue in this practice of generosity. The links for giving to your congregations are found on this slide and will be posted in the chat. Please give generously. And join me now in speaking this affirmation of gratitude and giving. Read aloud with me. Let us be grateful when we are able to give, for many do not have that privilege. Let us be grateful for those who share their gifts with us, for we are enriched by their giving. And let us be grateful even for our needs, so that we may learn from the generosity of others. May it be so.
Gonna keep on moving forward. Keep on moving forward. Keep on moving forward. Never turning back. Never turning back. Sigamos adelante, siempre adelante, siempre adelante, sin volver atrás, sin volver atrás. Gonna keep on loving boldly. Keep on loving boldly. Keep on loving boldly. Never turning back. Never turning back. Amaremos con pasión. Siempre con pasión. Siempre con pasión, sin volver atrás, sin volver atrás. Gonna reach across our borders, reach across our borders, reach across turning back, never turning back. Vivamos sin fronteras, siempre sin fronteras, siempre sin fronteras, sin volver atrás, sin volver atrás. Gonna reunite the family, reunite the family, reunite the family, never turning back, never turning back. Familias reunidas, siempre reunidas, siempre reunidas, sin volver atrás, sin volver atrás. Gonna keep on moving forward, keep on moving forward, keep on moving forward, never turning back, 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 never turning back. We love you.
We're going to keep on moving forward, everyone. Dear ones, as we prepare to end our service and go out into this beautiful and heartbreaking world, as we prepare to cast our votes or encourage others to cast their votes or ensure that every vote is counted, as we do this work, may the light of love shine upon you, out from within you, be gracious unto you, and bring you peace. For this is the day we are given. Let us rejoice and be glad in it. And I am thrilled that we're going to close in just a moment with one more song from Emma's Revolution. And then after this, you are all invited to join the coffee and social hour from your congregation or the congregation of your choice if you'd like to meet new folks. The links are going to be in the chat here, and we're also going to pull up a screen with those links after we have this final song. So stick around, get to know each other, build those relationships that will strengthen us and sustain us for whatever may come. It is so good to be together with all of you this morning. And here we are with one more song from Emma's Revolution.
You can sing this one too.
In Montgomery and in Selma, in the streets of Birmingham, people sent a message to the leaders of the land. We have fought and we have suffered, but we know the wrong from right. We are family, we are neighbors, we are black and we are white. Here I go, bound for freedom, live my truth, take the lead, not the preacher, not the congress, not the millionaire, my dream. I will organize for justice, I will raise my voice in song, and our children will be free to lead the world and carry on. One sat down on the sidewalk, one spoke out for her land. Now Greta and Tokata and young leaders all demand we must shout, our house is burning, we must open up our eyes, take action for the planet, like the waters we will rise. Try go down for freedom.
much for having us, you all. Wonderful to see you again and be with you.
Much love, y'all.
Thank you, Pat and Sandy. Thank you to all the folks behind the scenes this morning, our tech crew, Aaron Wilson and Maureen Claffey in the chat. Go ahead and take this time to grab a refill on your coffee. Find that link to your congregation. If you are a member of the Unitarian Society, you can stay right here, take a quick break and come right back to